Okay, folks, we're it's about 5 after 5, and we'd like to budget about an hour for questions and answers today. I do hope that everyone had an opportunity to see the presentation that was delivered last night and posted this afternoon. If you haven't, there is a presentation on our reopening on our website, as well as a video of last night's presentation that was roughly about 2 hours between the presentation and questions and answers. I'm optimistic that today my dogs won't fly off the handle, and I also won't run out of daylight, so I don't have to use my iPhone as a flashlight so that you can see me. But otherwise, we have about 63 people in the room now, I'm seeing. Today, I thought it would be advisable, perhaps, rather than just listen to me, to have a panel. So we have Mr. Soto, Ms. Angolia, and Ms. Laughlin. So the entire cabinet of the administrative team is here. And I would like to open it up. If there are any specific questions regarding our opening plan. Again, I would emphasize that our reopening plan is one that is very unique to St. Emeritus because we have to factor in things like our facilities, things like our staffing capabilities, and many local factors that influence the development of a plan. So I would hesitate to compare ourselves to any other plans out there or any other models. Ours is a plan that is unique to St. Emeritus and is one that is driven by, first and foremost, the health and safety of our students and our staff. So, kind of that as an initial, disclaimer. Perhaps, Mr. Nofi, if we have some hands raised, we can get right into some questions.
Sure, let me take a look. If anyone has any questions, just use the raise hand feature and I will unmute you. Oh, here we go. Christine Buff.
Hi, good evening. Just a busing question, and maybe it's too early to answer this, but my children are willing to bike to school, which I'm grateful for. But if we fill out the survey and say we don't want busing, what if we need it for some sort of emergency, like really cold weather and rain? I mean, I know it's too specific of a question, but I don't want to be locked out of not getting a spot on the bus.
Yeah, I want to thank you for that. And as I tried to emphasize last night, Kerry Laughlin, our assistant superintendent for business, is in charge of transportation, and she's handling lots of those transportation issues. But what I would want to say is that we are going to be pushing out a survey, and I probably should have led with that, and I certainly will close with it. We are pushing out a survey tomorrow. Okay, our plan is being sent in tomorrow. And I don't want to say locked into it because I keep emphasizing that it's a flexible, fluid plan that remains nimble to any kind of adjustments we can make. But one of those is, transportation is going to be a linchpin in this plan because the need to transport kids to and from school is essential. And we do have a pretty liberal transportation policy that our community votes upon. So that being said, what we'll be doing is we'll be putting out a survey, and the survey will ask multiple things of parents. It will be asking, what is your intention? Now that you understand our plan a bit, what is your intention? To send your children to school? If in fact you are sending your child to school, what is your intent for transportation? If you say that you're planning on driving, you can provide us with other information, like in inclement weather, we're not going to be able to do this, and it's really a matter of sizing things up so that we can plan accordingly. All of the decisions and all of the data that we get is going to help us to figure out our capacity, whether it be for transportation or for having children in our schools. So whatever information you can give us is fine, but the communication lines just need to remain open if things are going to change.
So I guess, and then my next question is, I was speaking to one of my sons and just trying to understand, obviously it sounds like people who do want to send their kids, either they're going to get there by bus, car, or bike. Will there be additional security to kind of guide the whole process outside? Because it's obviously going to get really crazy in terms of drop off. I know it's been pretty fluid. They're going into high school, so I'm talking about the secondary campus. But I guess I'm most concerned that if they are on bikes and they go up to the crossing guard, just making sure that it's super safe for them because they'll be on 2 wheels with backpacks, and you know, I know that they're capable because they've done it before, but I just want to make sure that there'll be maybe some extra eyeballs out there.
Yeah, understood. And you know, that's one of the things with this is that everything we have to implement is going to require, in many cases, additional staff. When we're talking about the ability to, you know, to greet kids on campus and have to do temperature checks and things like that, certainly it's going to require additional staff, and certainly we're going to have more security on hand.
Okay.
If we know we're going to have more kids walking, riding bikes, and they're giving us that kind of information, we could we can make arrangements to make it, you know, as safe as possible as kids are, you know, coming onto campus.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay,
So,
I have, yep, we have one. We have Aidan.
Lauren, how do I unmute it? Am I on?
You're live.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm on my son's Chromebook. This is Maureen Pellegrino, Aidan's mom. I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on what if my child, if Aidan, who will be a senior, is going to school on Monday and Tuesday. Could you elaborate a little bit about what Wednesday will look like for him and what Thursday and Friday would look like at home?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer initially, and then I'm going to toss to Rainey Ngolio, who's our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. But you know, what I can tell you is that one of the things, you know, we were very reflective in the spring model of distance learning. Okay, and we took data, we took feedback from parents, and we looked at what we felt was most effective, as well as what parents said and children said were most effective. So what we're attempting to do, and what we are actively doing, is working with our Teachers Association. One of the things we'd like to see is more consistency in our model for instruction. It might not look the same at the secondary as it does at the elementary, but what we will see is substantive interaction with teachers, whether you're on distance learning or whether you're in the classroom. And anything that's accessible live in the classroom needs to be made accessible to the kids on distance learning as well. So Raina, do you want to kind of jump into that a little bit maybe?
Yeah, sure. So one of the specifics, as Dr. Massera mentioned, was the positive feedback that we got in terms of teacher created videos. So what we're working on with the teachers right now in the hybrid model is the concept of a flipped classroom. So trying to make decisions and prioritizing like what's going to work best on the days that they're in person, what must be done in person, and what is feasible for the distance learning days, which is essentially 3 days a week. The other piece of feedback that we heard from both teachers and students was the need for a schedule, even though some of that freedom I think initially was really nice. I think the need to follow a schedule. So, you know, we're creating something where the kids are going to follow their schedule throughout the day, and that each day they will have some type of contact with their teacher. You know, it might be a one-to-one, it might be a small group, or it could be a full class on the days that they are home in terms of that, that connection. Because what we found was if, you know, there was such a wide range of what people were doing as we were trying things out and looking for best practices, but we realized that daily connection is really, really important, not just the necessarily posting of assignments.
Right.
So,
now, I'm with you. I'm an educator myself, so this is, you know, we're all trying to figure this out. I guess my thought process was on Wednesdays, the students are home, the teachers are home, so the students should have some accessibility to the teachers if they would have a question. I
yes.
guess my concern comes into Thursday, Friday, while the teacher is in the school teaching and doing what they need to do. If my child were to have a question on an assignment, would there be somebody available to him? And, you know, I was trying to brainstorm ideas as well, even if it were like if he were to have a math question, his teacher's in class, maybe they decide not to live stream that class, but is there someone that Aidan could reach out to, maybe in the math department, that could assist him in his questions? I just don't want them, because I completely understand the teacher is in the building, he or she is doing their job. At 4 o'clock, they should not have to come home and then deal with all the questions of the children that were home during the course of the day. So I guess
that's actually a really good point. So what we've worked out in the schedule, where it will be very similar to an in-person schedule, at the end of the days with the students that were not in school on those days, there will be an office hour / extra help period.
Okay,
where those kids who are home can interact. But actually, you made a good point. Like, is there a way to maybe, if it's not that your child's teacher, is there another mechanism somehow that we could look into? So that's going to be something that we are definitely going to discuss with the teachers as well.
I mean, definitely, like, even on the elementary level, if you were to have like a liaison for the kindergarten through 5th grade, just, whether it's a reading teacher, math teacher, AIS teacher, just someone that's accessible to the kids, that when they're home, or the parents, or they have questions, but they can't get to the teacher necessarily because they're teaching, that there's someone that, that they can reach out to. I guess that would be really my concern.
Yeah, thank you. That's great feedback.
Okay.
Okay, up next we have Lindsay.
Hi, how are you? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. Hi. So I have 2 questions, and I apologize if they were already addressed. I did not make it through the whole question and answer session last night. So my 2 questions would be in respect to distance learning, and if you chose to keep your children home to do 100% distance learning. If you chose to do that in September, are there any options at any point throughout the year to decide to send them back if things are going well and you feel more comfortable with that option? Are there different dates where you could potentially integrate your child back into the school?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll take that if you don't. You want me to take that? Yeah. I mean, just like we are as a district, we're going to be constantly evaluating this process based on what happens in the world, and I imagine that individual families will be doing the same. So no matter what, and this is one of the reasons why we struggled with the concept of keeping our master schedule intact. And that means we have kids kind of scheduled for all their classes right now as if they'd be going in, 100% of the time, because that is the goal at some point. So your child is not going to be taken out of his or her spot. So there is going to be opportunity if, you were, inclined to keep your child home at first and then to reevaluate as you go on.
Okay, and then my other question would be, so both of my children are in the elementary school. I have a 1st grader and a 4th grader. For their distance learning, I don't know if you guys had addressed this last night or not. Do we know, will it be similar to the spring, whereas they will have a Google Classroom set up and, and assignments posted and that kind of thing? Or is it going to be live teaching? Have you guys figured out that aspect of it yet?
Well, we're still working on a lot of the details, but as Dr. Massara said, we are aiming for some more consistency. So I think you will see a blend of both. It will still be the same platform, the Google site or the Google Classroom being the hub of the information, but the consistency with and the availability of the teacher, I think you'll see will be more frequent.
Okay, and actually, I'm sorry, one more question. My 4th grader has an IEP, and part of his accommodations are that when he does testing, he is able to sit at the teacher's table in a small group. How is an accommodation like that, that's, it kind of puts that social distancing aspect into play of, how will that be met either at home or in the classroom, where it's taking this small group of children and then having to divide them even further? And I guess how are you going to keep them away if his IEP requires him to sit at a table with a teacher and 4 children? How does that come into play? Will that be figured out?
I'll take that one. Hi, some of the things that I believe we're going to have to do in terms of testing accommodations is modify them slightly because of the fact that we do have to abide by appropriate social distancing recommendations. So just to give you an example of that particular scenario that you just mentioned, let's say a couple of students are scheduled to take an examination. You can still separate them in a group model, but you may have to do it in different groupings. So you still can maintain social distancing while still maintaining or still abiding by that testing accommodation.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. And good work. I know this can't be easy for any of you, so thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Laura.
Hi. I'm just actually going to follow up a little bit on the last questions posed regarding more at the elementary level. When the students are on a distance learning day, it was discussed last night that, like, let's say a lesson's being taught to cohort A on Monday and Tuesday. It's not that cohort B will get the same lesson on Thursday and Friday. So, like, when you're talking about young kids, you know, first grade, kindergarten, second grade, I guess, what does it look like? Is it synchronous teaching going on for those that are on the distance learning day, getting that lesson? I just wanted to, like, try and visualize what a day for them looks like.
You want to take that one, or Sharia?
So, you know, and again, you know, there's been some talk about what it'll look like at the high school. At the elementary, that, you know, that is something that we're talking with the elementary teachers about. Same thing. We are working on a model that, you know, meets all of the requirements of the next generation learning standards for each individual grade level. And that's something that, you know, I could throw out a lot of ideas and a lot of models, but we're really trying to settle on something that can work for basically all the teachers in the elementary or primary, and then maybe intermediate, slightly different. So there's a lot of ideas on the table, and we don't have a definite, you know, exact model that's going to take place. But the reality is, you can be assured that what is going to take place is going to be a model wherein, you know, all of the kids, you know, whether you're in cohort A or cohort B, and if you're in distance learning or you're at home, excuse me, or you're in person, you are getting the curriculum to the extent that it is available for all kids in the same capacity. You know, and I'm not giving you a whole lot of details here, but suffice to say that the teachers fully understand that while we experimented and we did a lot of good things in the spring, we certainly have a different expectation for what's going to roll out in the fall. Randy, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that, you know, we're approaching it is looking at, and I said this earlier, that, you know, the in-person piece, that every student who's home is going to get resources, information, an activity, something like that. And then the in-person piece is going to be an extension, an explanation. So if you follow, like, the pattern of teaching, it really is, there's going to be independent work expected at home, and then the guided practice elements of the teaching will be the in-person teaching, because a lot of the guided practice, you need to have that live instruction with you. So I think that's how the teachers are approaching it. But basically, like, what can be done at home, and then what must be done in school.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to really, like, being a parent and trying to work it all out. I'm just trying to figure out, you know, distance learning as an option but then, you know, are these kids supposed to be signed on when you're at work, and who's watching them? I mean, we're talking little kids, first graders, they can't do this by themselves. So I'm just trying to get you know, before we're asked to make these decisions, like, I know you can't give specifics, but I feel like we just need as much information as possible that we're making the best decision for our kids, knowing what a day at home looks like, and do they have to be on at a certain time, or will it be a video viewed later? I mean, if you're having babysitters or grandparents or daycare, like, you know, expectations on them, that's not necessarily a fair expectation, but then you're doing it at 6 o'clock at night after you've come home from work. So I just want to, you know, it's harder with the younger kids because they're not as independent. I mean, my son's going to 5th. He had Miss McInerney last year. She did phenomenal. She was amazing. She put forth so much effort. She did live instruction every day, and he really got in the groove. So I see it there. There's so much potential there to do great things. But the little, the kindergarten, first, second graders, that's where I'm really concerned. But thank you so much for your efforts and for your information. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, just to add to that, I have a kindergartner myself and a fourth grader and a seventh grader. So I'm all over the map. And, that's why I think, creating a set of resources that are accessible at any time is a big piece of this because of the time piece in terms of and everyone's individual family circumstance. So that flexibility will absolutely be built into like that thinking, that understanding of what parents and families are going through will be built into not just the platform, but just, teachers' understanding of, assignments and due dates. And, are we going to, we experimented with due dates and not having hard due dates and things like that because we have to consider all the variables that families are going through. So that's a big part of our planning. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
All right, we have Jean.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Jean.
Jane.
Hello.
Okay, and this question is two questions, basically in the elementary area. My husband and I have custody of our grandchild because Liz is going away to basic training. So last night, and I appreciate the work and the effort, and it sounds doable. I do have one question in regards to the paperwork parents will have to sign off. And another parent spoke on it last night, that they're going to say what you want them to say. Now, in the elementary school, there are a number of entrances. So why can't each grade level have an entrance assigned to them so that their temperatures can be taken at the door? The second question is, what about the phys ed classes in the elementary school? How, what is the plan to maintain social distance and so forth?
Yeah, those are, one great suggestion you had there, Jean. And I think that, a lot of this is about our ability and capacity to, when we worry about, 2 years ago, we were worrying a lot more about school safety than we were worrying about the actual health issues, right? And so the idea of having kids have to wait online 6 feet apart outside of school, 2 years ago would have been unconscionable. And now we're trying to wrestle with, is that a good idea? Or is that something that puts kids at risk because they're waiting out in front of the school en masse for too long? So we're wrestling with that, and the idea that, the temperature taking piece, can we count on parents to do it every day? It might not be perfect and we may have to revise that, but certainly taking that into account. As far as the phys ed piece goes, phys ed is one of those activities where many of the activities are aerobic activities where kids are going to be running around. And in that situation, it's very difficult to have children running around in one of our gyms. If they're running and doing an activity in the Main Street gym, many of the activities would require them to be less than 12 feet apart, which is the expectation for social distancing in an aerobic activity. That's difficult. So what they refer to as super spreading events like phys ed or music and chorus, we would be looking at, to whatever extent possible, if there are aerobic activities, the kids would be doing that outdoors. On days when they cannot, they may be doing other types of activities, perhaps mindfulness and yoga activities, things that don't require the same amount of social distancing to be safe. So it just looks like a different kind of phys ed than perhaps the traditional, I would say.
Okay, thank you so much. And I want to say to all the parents, I work in this school district and I really believe our administrators have the heart of our children.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Jane. Very nice.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, No hands yet. If anybody has a question, just use the raise hand feature and we'll get to you. Okay, Christine again.
Hi guys. Sports at the secondary campus. So obviously we know that the season is hopefully starting the 21st of September if it all is approved. Totally get that. And I know the plan B would be those other scenarios, but so is it the responsibility, obviously it's the responsibility of the parent to get the children back up to school if they're on a home day? Like, will soccer be 5 days a week? I mean, I know that maybe that's not really something you even have any idea about, but like, how do are we getting them back up there by 2 o'clock, or I don't know?
Yeah, quite honestly, there's a lot of different scenarios out there, and it's very difficult for me to comment on. But one of the likely scenarios, and one of the things they've been talking about is even sports taking place in smaller cohorts, you know, so that the kids are more spread out. Right? All these ideas have come to, you know, as and we're really not sure what's going to come to pass. But that is one of the things that they mentioned. They also mentioned, you know, the possibility that even if sports start later, there may be a possibility that there can be, under certain conditions, some workouts that teams could engage in. So until we have real good guidance on that, we're, you know, just like everything else, we have some ideas, but we can't really put any stock in any of those ideas until we have real good guidance on what the expectation is from New York State Public High School Athletic Association and, quite frankly, our governor, who's making a lot of those decisions about when teams can be on our fields and when teams can practice together in school. Okay,
thank you. One more quick question. One of my children had asked me today, we're sitting on the beach, and he said, well, Mom, if there aren't enough kids that want to be in school that are on the B day, could the A day kids go? And, you know, I don't know what you're maxing your numbers out, but, you know, my 2 children were Bs, were buffs, so they'll be coming on Monday, Tuesday. But his question was, if there's room for me to come on Thursday, Friday, could I?
Yeah, you know, and again, when I talk about the, you know, the flexibility of our plan, hey, we're submitting our plan, right, tomorrow, because that's what we have to do. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that's the exact plan that's going to roll out on September 2nd when our teachers come in, and then furthermore that the following Tuesday when the children come in. So, you know, what I mean by that is when we collect data on the numbers of parents that are planning to send their children to school, yeah, things may change. And we're going to have to reevaluate at the end of next week when we have some more data. So what we'll be asking all parents to do is please immediately fill out that survey, get us some information, because whoever doesn't fill out the survey, you know, we'll be asking for your last name, your contact information for the kids, and then we'll have to be going out and using, you know, resources for outreach to try to get answers to those questions from other parents, so that then we can make an informed decision that may further guide our plan.
Okay, thank you. I just know my kids miss school terribly, so they want to be there as much as possible.
Well, the most impressive thing to me is the fact that you were on the beach on a beautiful beach day and your children were talking about wanting to be in school. So that makes me very happy.
Well, I have to say. They just love it and they miss it terribly. So, but thank you for everything. I appreciate all your answers, and whether you are, you know the answer or not, at least we're all talking and working together. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
I see Dante in the Angolia house.
Got a new haircut, sir.
We have Margaret up next.
Hello. I wasn't able to get onto the meeting last night. I guess I got on too late. There's too many people. My question to you, so I missed all the information. My son will be in middle school in a 12-1-1 class. What are you doing for those students? Are they going to school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or are they going A or B?
Yeah. So first, I'm gonna toss that over to Mr. Soto. But please know that the entire presentation from yesterday is online. So you can view the entire. You know, I mean, it's riveting, the 2 hours of drama. But you know, you might fall asleep, but get some popcorn and you have 2 hours worth of entertainment that you can watch if you'd like to. But I'll toss to Mr. Soto for the answer to that question.
Okay.
Yes, hi. We have decided to have self-contained classes, 811 and 1211 classes, attend 4 days a week. That was a recommendation that came to us from New York State Department of Education in terms of maximizing your instructional time for students with special needs. So they will come in every day, obviously with the exception of Wednesday, which no students will be present. For the students that have an opportunity to mainstream into less restrictive environments, we are going to restrict them to one cohort. And in your particular child's case will most likely be the A cohort. So we're doing that to try to avoid cross-contamination with the other cohorts.
Okay. All right. I'm just a little concerned because this past spring, I guess there were a lot more other teachers that might have did a little more work than the other teachers. I understand it took a while for everybody to understand how to work online. But my son, he had reading once a week in school. His reading did not start until the 8th week for 20 minutes. It was once a week for 20 minutes online. And the kids, the teacher got the students together once a week just to talk and say hello. And that was 20 minutes. And each morning there was Monday through Friday assigned work. So my son's work, I would say within an hour every day. I had to be honest, I was completely disappointed. As a parent, I worked with him because it is my responsibility, but I just felt the school should have been doing a lot more than the 2 videos a week. And again, it didn't start until the 8th week.
And
one thing I could say is that, you know, again, that was new to us in the spring. We learned a lot through that experience, but I don't want to see frustration like that from parents. So if you could contact us in a timely manner, we will certainly address any circumstances where kids are feeling like where parents are feeling like their children's needs are not being met.
Please. And one of the things that Dr. Massaro mentioned, as was Mrs. Ngolia, this is one of the major reasons why we're working hard with our Teachers Association to ensure consistency and sort of universal expectations as we move forward in September with the plan that we currently have in place.
Okay, so it looks like and we'll be going to school 4 days a week, and it's regular school hours. What is it, 7:30 to 2 or something?
It is a slightly abridged schedule because we did have to accommodate for the 10 period of extra help and distance learning time that we are allotting to our secondary teachers. So it will be an abridged version of their schedule. Periods, instead of being 41 minutes, we are looking at the possibility of shortening those periods slightly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yes, how you doing? This is Richard, actually. I was just able to join a few moments ago, so I apologize. My question has been answered already. But you had mentioned last night, Dr. Massaro, that the barriers will be installed on all the students' desks. If that's the case, will the students be required to wear their masks all day long while at the desks with the barriers?
Okay, so number one, yeah, we are going to purchase those barriers, but we're quite honestly, we're having some difficulty because the barriers that we found, New York State Education Department has multiple criteria for acceptable barriers, and we to date have not found a satisfactory one that really meets New York State Ed requirements. So, you know, we're hopeful that we can find one, but again, things need to be tested. If we can maintain 6 feet with a barrier, there's a possibility we may not need to have the masks, but I really can't go there until I'm comfortable. So we're starting with a universal masking policy and 6 feet of separation at this time. And then once we know what our capabilities are, you know, in terms of spacing, and you know, it's about in those first 2 weeks testing our systems and seeing how stressed our systems are in terms of cleaning, and sanitization, in terms of maintaining social distancing, in terms of transportation, all those key things, and that's why it's sort of a kind of slow roll phased approach to bringing the kids in. So first part of it, we are beginning with the universal masking idea, and then we'll see where we're at as we progress.
Thank you. And just one more quick question that came into my head. It was, you can correct me here, it was the state guidelines that said, that basically gave the square footage required per student per room. So that's basically what you had to do, look at each room, the square footage available, and that's what you based the number of children in the room available to?
Yeah, so if you look at our document, you know, they like basically there are, you know, kind of social distance calculators. There's one out of Kentucky. There's another one that we used that basically for a 540 square foot room, the maximum amount of people you can get in that room is 15. You know, that's, you know, that is one of our smaller rooms. And then we have bigger rooms where we could potentially get more people in. So let's say we had, you know, a class at 26 kids, you know, and you cut that in half to cohort them into two groups of 13. If you had 100% attendance in each cohort and you had a teacher and an aide, you probably couldn't fit in that 540 square foot room, given, you know, appropriate social distancing. You need a room a little bit bigger than that. So like those are the kinds of like nitty gritty details we got into when examining all of our facilities.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
You got it.
Okay. Let's see. Marianne. Marianne, you may have to unmute yourself.
Hello there.
Hello.
Am I unmuted?
You're good.
Oh, I'm good. Well, first, accolades to all of you for the efforts. I can't even imagine what you're going through. I was a teacher many years ago, and it was so much easier than what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, I have 2 grandchildren attending 7th and 8th grade next year. And the spring worked well for us because we too were able to assist them in their learning. However, I felt some of the scheduling was a bit laissez-faire. One child received assignments at 10 o'clock, one received assignments at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the consistency of having it sent into the teacher was kind of the end of the day or the next day. Now, being in school, they have I'm just being hypothetical, social studies the first period, science the third period. Will this be a scheduled kind of thing for the children? Will they be able to go on their computers and see, oh, this is my English class, this is my at 8:30, and I need to have it done by the end of the day, and homework to follow for the next day? Is that a...
So what you're describing then is a truly 100% synchronous model, which you know, in many circumstances may work. However, there are some circumstances where that might not work.
Yes, I understand.
So I think that what, you know, in terms of equity and making sure that all students have the same kind of access, you know, as you indicated, you know, you're very fortunate to be able to provide the kind of support your grandchildren need. And that's wonderful. There are some families, where parents, and given these circumstances, one of the concerns expressed last night was that, you have, two parents working, and we're only having kids in school, 2 days a week. My heart goes out to those people, and that's going to be very difficult. It'll be very difficult in my own home, because that's going to be the same kind of model my wife and I will be dealing with, and we both work. So I get it. So what we need to do is we need to provide a mechanism so that the instructional materials that are presented in the school are accessible to all kids at home at a time that is most convenient for them. So if some teachers are running a synchronous model, those kinds of things also need to be preserved via video recording or something, so that the rest of the class can have access as well.
No, I have absolutely no complaints. The teachers were absolutely marvelous during the springtime. I just, now that we're going forward, and I know you will be doing lots of reevaluating, and education is a priority, but I think the most important thing is keeping everybody well and safe and healthy. And I saw that you had 2 dates, to September 15th and I think October. I just, I know you will be looking at all this carefully. So whatever it is, perhaps any parental or grandparental help that is necessary, we're here for you. And, we just thank you all for what you're doing. So, I can't say anything more, but God bless everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have Dawn.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. Good evening. Thank you so much for the open dialogue. I just have a question, and I apologize if it was already discussed. My son is in middle school, and I wanted to know if the plan was to keep the children in the same classroom for the day and have the teachers move from classroom to classroom, and also if lunch would be served in a classroom, and if they still have the ability to purchase lunch.
Yeah. Carrie, do you want to jump in? Because you've been so quiet. You can talk about the food service, maybe?
Lunch will be served every single day. It will be offered to all students, whether you're on distance learning or in the building. We're working out the details for those on distance learning, and that information will be forthcoming. But students in the middle school, high school will still be eating in either the cafeteria or the gymnasium. We do still have to ensure social distancing is taking place, so we're using both of those locations. Also to allow us enough time to sanitize in between periods. So we'll be alternating between those locations. In the elementary building, though, all the kids will be eating in the classroom. So they'll all be grab and go lunches. We're going to be offering an option also to pre-order your lunches ahead of time through an app. We're working those details out right now also. So all that information will be coming out as we move closer to the actual opening.
Okay, good. And then just my other question was if it seems like the teachers are going to be moving as opposed to the students, or not necessarily. This is middle school, I guess, / high school.
Not necessarily. I think it's a lot more simpler at the elementary to keep the students in place. At the secondary complex, the middle and high school, a lot of students move in different directions because they do have what we would describe as individualized scheduling. And we do have at times mixed students in different classes. So it is somewhat very difficult for us to keep the students stagnant. We're going to try to the best of our ability to keep them in one place and have the teachers move when possible. But there are times during the school day that the schedule itself and the fact that students have different directions as to what classes they take, it will be impossible to keep all students in the same classroom throughout the entire day.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't mind them moving around, obviously, as long as they keep moving and they're wearing masks. I'm not that crazy. So
yeah, social distancing will be adhered to. We will have signs in the hallway to ensure that. We will have staff and monitors in the hallway to ensure that kids are not hanging around and going from one destination to the next in a timely fashion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Okay. Up next, Bettina, can you hear us?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for taking my question. It's actually a question for Mr. Soto.
Sure.
Did you say that all students that have an IEP are going to be in the A cohort?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No. It really depends on the alphabet. It depends on your child's last name. We will we will do our best to keep families together. We realize the fact that we do have families that may have children with different last names. So that will be a point of consideration. So we will keep individuals that reside in the same household together. But the cohorts will be based by alphabet.
Okay, because our last name is B, so I was assuming we would be in the B cohort, but then I thought I heard you say something about the special education classes would be in the A cohort. I have a son that's in the class that's inclusion, 12 and 12.
12-1-1, you mean? The
No, 12, like 12.
12 students.
I guess it's half and half. It's the least restrictive.
Okay, so that's our direct consultant model.
Yes. So would that be something that he might still be in the B cohort, or should I maybe start to think that all of my kids would be in the A cohort?
I would think that if your last name ends in B, he would be most likely in the A cohort.
No, not B. V. V like
V.
Victor.
Yes, that's a good assumption. I apologize. I couldn't hear you. But if your last name starts with V, yes, that would be a safe assumption that most likely your children will be in the B cohort.
All of them, including the one that's in the inclusion class.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
So one of the things we would emphasize is that, you know, I got an email from a parent today whose last name began with B, but there was another child in the home, a step sibling, whose, you know, last name began with V, let's just say. And she was asking Dr. Massaro, will our children be able to be together? And, you know, that's some of the kind of information we need to have, because I said, most assuredly, yes, we want to cohort households together, not just necessarily by alpha.
Okay, another hand up. LeighAnn.
Unmute. Okay, hi.
Hi.
My question is regarding sports. I have two daughters that play sports, and they want to know if they're in the B cohort, say, do they only go to practice on those days, or are they still going to be practicing with the team, you know, all 4 days that school is open?
Yeah, that's quite honestly an answer I really cannot respond to yet. We are awaiting guidance from not just the governor in terms of when he would allow organized sports in school to take place, but New York State Public High School Athletic Association. You know, I indicated earlier to another parent, there are multiple models being proposed out there. Some are, you know, sort of to make smaller teams and cohorts on teams, even have kids practice every other day if they're doing because one of the models is that they may allow individual, you know, small group team workouts, which would have to be cohorted. Other models suggest that they may allow whole team workouts 5 days a week. We really don't know, and we're going to be waiting on guidance on that. But as soon as we, you know, just like we did with our plan, when New York State Education Department and the Department of Health put out their guidance, we hit the ground running to make sure we put everything in place. It'll be the same with athletics. As you know, my children are all athletes. My children love sports, and we know how important that is, you know, for kids in terms of making a connection to the school and being engaged. So we want 100% capacity in our buildings, and we want all activities running. But we're certainly, you know, limited with what we can provide right now.
All right, so we'll just keep our ears open and our eyes. Thanks.
Sure.
All right. Let's see, Nicole.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having the question and answer session. My particular question was regarding what's the protocol going to be for notifying parents in the event of potential exposure to COVID-19, or if one of the students happens to maybe have it suspected and, you know, there is a delay in testing and getting results. How would we be notified? Is it through you guys, a robocall, or that was my question?
Yeah. So that's a great question, and thanks for that, because we really didn't spend a lot of time on that. I want you to know that I have been in touch with the Suffolk County Department of Health about 3 times over the past week and a half, leading calls with them about just that, and establish some clear protocols on what happens if there is a positive case, what happens if there is a suspected case. And so, you know, basically, you know, we have an obligation to communicate, number one, first and foremost, with families about what is happening. And number two, we have an obligation to contribute and support the county in their contact tracing. So what essentially happens is if we get a confirmed positive case, they go immediately into contact tracing mode. And we provide them with information about which kids were in that cohort. You know, what was our protocol? Did we have 6 feet of spacing? Did we have universal masking? Were there opportunities for the kids to be closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes? There's lots of questions that are going to be asked, and we're going to need to be able to provide them with, you know, things like that in terms of, you know, for a positive case, perhaps attendance records and seating charts and bus lists and stuff like that. But it's the county's job to notify you all about what your potential exposure was based on the information that we provide to them. And we will work very closely with them. But one of the things we're working on is, as I indicated, very clear protocols on sort of like an if-then flow chart for if this happens in your school, this is the reality and the reaction of what we should be doing and action we should take. So that's something that we're really working with them, and we're feeling good about the cooperation we're getting so that we can have, not just for our school, but for every school in the county can react in the same manner when there is a suspected case.
Okay, so it would be the Suffolk County Department of Health that would be notifying us in the event that one of the students in their cohort or a staff member that was part of their cohort, the county would notify us, not the school district.
So we would notify you, but only the county can sort of order a quarantine.
Oh, okay, sure.
That's basically it. You know, I mean, I mean, I'm only guessing just because I think that we're pretty good with our communication.
Sure.
Notifying you that you're, you know, here's a heads up, Ms. Gulino. I'm pretty sure that the county is going to be calling you to order a 14-day quarantine because of exposure and a close contact with a person who had COVID-19. You know,
okay.
That's kind of how it would go. You know, fingers crossed that never happens, but
absolutely. No, thank you. That'll work.
Okay. All right, we're getting close to the end here of, you know, we said we'd go for about an hour. So if we could just get a couple, maybe 2 more questions, and then, you know, anyone at any time can contact us in the office, you know, via email. I can promise you we'll be very responsive. The other thing I can promise is that once we have more information after those parent surveys come in, we will be able to conduct another, you know, community forum, you know, in a couple of weeks that will provide perhaps, you know, some more drilled down details. I would say that in terms of, you know, you hear us talk about who's in cohort A and who's in cohort B. One of the things we want to do is get you guys a calendar so that you understand and let you really know who's in cohort A and who's in cohort B so that you can plan accordingly. The last thing you probably want to do is hear on September 2nd which cohort you're in. So please be assured that we want to get that information out quickly to you. So that's the work ahead of us to make sure that we can communicate effectively and you can do the kind of planning you need to as parents. So Bill, maybe 2 more hands?
Sure, I have Kate Adams.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
I can. Kate, how are you?
Hi, Ron. Again, thanks everybody for all your hard work. For those of you listening, I am a parent in the district, but I'm also a teacher in the elementary school. And although I did not work last year during the spring online distance learning, I'm wondering, maybe Raina, this might be guided to you. Can you kind of explain for K-2 how a typical day in the classroom might go, because they're not leaving and specials are pushing in? And I'm just wondering, like, when do they get to move?
Hi, Kate, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
You know, the part about, the challenging part, I think, could be, especially for the young kids, is that movement piece. And we will have to, build in breaks. And as Dr. Messera said, like, at first, I think keeping kids, and in one place and not intermingling is important. And even though I think it'll be challenging, I think that, as time moves on, like, maybe we do, in the beginning, we have to have lunch in the classrooms and so on, to make sure that, we're keeping kids as distant as possible. In terms of, the teacher day, you're still going to have, your professional period, your prep, and your lunch. And, maybe
I
part
understand
of,
there's going to be break, maybe yoga.
yeah, so, and part of and so when you're in the classroom, I think just as a teacher, knowing that the kids are going to be in that room for, the day,
Right.
that might change, your approach to certain things. You're going to incorporate different break schedules, so, you're going to, I know, kind of factor in those things. And,
okay.
So, I imagine that, and the major difference, as I mentioned, in the classroom, really for the teacher is really preparing, the lessons that have to be done in class, and preparing the kids with the skills, the knowledge, the strategies to approach, distance learning, because they're going to have you live, for a portion of time. So yeah, I mean, when the specials push in, it's going to be like, I didn't get my stretch in the hallway, walking from my classroom to art and my classroom to music, that's definitely going to impact kids. So I think, we have to consider that, as individual teachers design their day.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks. All right, it does look like all hands are down at this point. So what a compliant group we have, adhering to our 6 o'clock timeline. But seriously, I joke, but this is extraordinary. These are extraordinary times, and this is an exceptional community. You guys have been wonderful. We appreciate everything that our parents do to support our schools, and be assured that this team in front of you is doing everything we can to provide the first off, ensure the health and safety, and second off, provide the highest quality education where we can support kids academically, socially, and emotionally, because that's our number one priority. We will, again, constantly revise and revisit this plan, but keep an eye out on our website. The plan has been posted now, and you'll be able to take a look at that. We hope you have a wonderful summer. Keep an eye out. We'll be communicating, and in a couple of weeks, hope to have another one of these where we have some of the nitty-gritty details fleshed out a little bit better for you, and can present once again. So thank you, Ricardo, Raina, Kerry, Bill. Appreciate all of that, and I appreciate all the community members who came tonight. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Thank you,
Bye-bye now.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.